Former President Trump is campaigning in Wisconsin today as his running mate, Senator J.D. Vance, prepares to debate Governor Tim Walz. The two will go head-to-head for 90 minutes on key issues like the economy, abortion, and immigration. I want to bring in Adrienne Elrod, the senior advisor and spokesperson for the Harris campaign. Adrienne, thanks for coming on. You know, Walz has said that he's nervous about this debate. Reportedly, he told Harris in a running mate interview that he was a bad debater. But he's done many debates before. So is he trying to set low expectations here? What's the strategy?
Look, I mean, here's the bottom line. I think Governor Walz is taking this debate very, very seriously because he understands the magnitude of this moment. Today is October 1st. The election is November 5th. You know, we have 5 weeks left, basically, to make sure that every single American understands what's at stake in this election. The contrast between the Trump-Vance ticket and the Harris-Walz ticket could not be more stark. Vice President Harris and Governor Walz want to take our country forward. They're charting a new way forward, which would build out the middle class, ensure reproductive freedoms are protected, make sure that we're growing our economy in a way that allows everyone in this country to get ahead. Donald Trump and J.D. Vance want to take us backward. They want to enact Project 2025, which would create a nationwide abortion ban, which would raise taxes on middle-class families by an average of $4,000 a year. You know, Donald Trump wants to get back into the White House to seek political retribution on his enemies. A Donald Trump 2.0 would be far more dangerous than a Donald Trump 1.0. So that's something that Governor Walz is going to make a huge contrast with J.D. Vance on tonight. And that's one of the reasons why he's taking this very seriously.
Now, polls have shown that on two of the biggest issues, the economy and immigration, voters trust former President Trump more than they trust the vice president. She's been criticized in the Biden administration in general for acting on immigration too late, only when it was in their political interest. So what do you expect to hear from Walz tonight if asked about that?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, rather than put out a concept of a plan, which is what Donald Trump said he has on a number of policies during the debate that he had with Vice President Harris several weeks ago, we actually are putting out real concrete plans. The vice president gave a speech in Pittsburgh last week where she really talked about how she's going to grow the economy for the middle class, how she's going to put more money back in the pockets of American families, how she's going to lower their health care costs. She also went to the border on Friday and talked about her immigration plan, which is going to be even stronger than what President Biden's executive orders put in place. She also, and so does Governor Walz, made it very clear that we are going on offense when it comes to immigration and the border. Donald Trump is the one who called his MAGA allies in Congress and said, don't pass this bipartisan historic border bill that may not come together for a long time again, because I don't want to give Joe Biden and Kamala Harris a win. She wants to make it very clear where she stands on this. She is tough on the border. It's because of Donald Trump why we don't have meaningful immigration reform and why we still have the problems that we have at the border, because he stopped that progress. So you're going to hear Governor Walz talk about that tonight. You're going to hear him draw a stark contrast with J.D. Vance.
Governor Walz served 27 years in the Minnesota National Guard, none of them in a war zone. And when arguing for stricter gun control, he talked about weapons of war that he carried in war. He later tried to explain it as a grammatical error. But this is sure to come up on stage tonight, given how much J.D. Vance has already said about it in the past. What do you think the vice presidential candidate is going to say here to try to defend himself for misrepresenting this?
Well, Governor Walz has made it clear that anyone who serves our country in the military should not be criticized. This is an act of valor. It is an act of patriotic duty. It's the ultimate dedication to your country. So I think he has certainly, you know, would never criticize anyone who has served in the military, served in the National Guard. He's made that very clear. And so have a number of our allies. You know, when you have Donald Trump, who J.D. Vance is his mouthpiece for, calling those who have served in our military suckers and losers, that is a stark contrast to somebody like Governor Walz, who served 27 years honorably and served our country and defended our country. So I think, again, the American people, especially those key independent swing voters who are still deciding how they're going to vote in this election, there could not be a starker contrast when it comes to the way Donald Trump views our military veterans, those who have served, versus the way the Harris-Walz ticket views our veterans.
An Associated Press poll shows higher favorability ratings for Walz than Vance, but it also finds 3 in 10 voters say they don't know enough about Walz to have an opinion on him. So how high are the stakes for him tonight, and what do you think he needs to do to show voters who he is?
Well, I think, again, he's going to continue to really talk about the Harris-Walz priorities, what their administration would look like, lowering costs for middle-class families, protecting the Affordable Care Act, not getting rid of it. We put out, we helped the Trump-Vance ticket yesterday by putting out what their health care plan would look like based on what Donald Trump has said about his fervent desire to get rid of the Affordable Care Act, which would, of course, dramatically expand costs for families, health care costs for families in this country. We made it clear that high-risk pools would come back into play under a Trump-Vance administration. So the concept of the plan that Donald Trump talked about during the debate with the vice president, we went ahead and put out a concrete plan of what his health care plan would look like if he got back into the White House. So, again, Governor Walz wants to make sure, and so does Vice President Harris, of course, over the next 5 weeks, that every single American understands what's at stake in this election, understands the contrast between these two campaigns for a completely different vision. We want to move our country forward. Donald Trump and J.D. Vance want to move it back. Governor Walz is going to make those contrast points very clear tonight.
All right, Adrienne Elrod, senior advisor, spokesperson for the Harris campaign. Thank you.
Thanks.
And I want to bring in ABC's Jay O'Brien again for more on this. Jay, let's start with immigration here, because this is sure to be a big topic tonight. It's a huge issue in the election, and it's one where Harris generally does worse in polls than former President Trump. Is what you just heard from Adrienne enough, do you think, for Walz to say in this debate tonight?
I mean, that is going to be the question facing the Harris campaign, because there's two issues in which we've seen Harris, and then when Joe Biden was the candidate, Joe Biden trail behind Donald Trump. One is the economy, one is immigration. We've seen some polling in recent weeks that show Harris closing the gap, frankly, on both those issues, but more on the economy than she's closed the gap on immigration, according to recent polls that we've seen. So immigration is a weak point for Tim Walz tonight, and you can expect, as Donald Trump tried to in the presidential debate, J.D. Vance to go repeatedly back to this topic about immigration. And you got a little bit of a sense from Adrienne about what the attack line is going to be back at J.D. Vance, kind of criticizing Trump for that concepts of a plan line that he issued at the presidential debate. It's worth fact-checking that, by the way. Adrienne said Trump has concepts of a plan as it relates to immigration. When he said that concepts of a plan line that's now become somewhat infamous, he was talking about health care. He wasn't talking about immigration. Donald Trump has been very clear, and the Trump campaigns are very clear about what their immigration plan is. Whether you like it or don't like it, they want to do mass deportations to the tunes of tens of millions, and also do a much more fulsome securing, they say, of the southern border when it comes to personnel and resources. But the other attack line that you saw, and it's something true that Adrienne said, is that Donald Trump tanked that bipartisan border bill that had the support, until he came out against it, of Republicans in Congress. Expect Tim Walz to bring that up, too.
Jay, the Harris campaign has talked a lot about the economy and plans for the economy, but not a lot on on inflation and how to lower prices. This is a huge thing the Trump campaign has gone after. What do you think we need to hear from Walz tonight? And do they have a specific enough plan on that to be able to counter?
Well, the fine line we've seen the Harris campaign already try to walk is this idea of saying that inflation is cooling and referencing the facts, which it is, but also trying to act as if they understand the concerns of average Americans who, poll after poll say that while they might feel that inflation is cooling for the country, some of them don't feel that their personal finances have improved in any way, shape, or form, and some feel that their personal finances have gotten worse. And those folks say, according to recent polls we've seen, that they're more inclined in some instances to vote for Donald Trump than they are of Harris because of that personal feeling. So what we've seen Harris try to do, and what you can expect Tim Walz to try to do tonight, is acknowledge the fact that we've seen positive economic indicators, but also say to those voters that aren't feeling those positive economic indicators that we hear you, and we have plans, as the Harris campaign has rolled out this broad, sweeping, ambitious economic plan to try to help those folks.
All right, ABC's Jay O'Brien, thank you.